Alright, so here is the last topic for this week. It is called Composite Area. I saved this one for last because I wanted to do that review yesterday because you need all of the area formulas to be successful with Composite Area. The first thing you need to know is what a composite figure even is. So this is a figure that can be separated into regions that are basic plane figures, so like the triangles, parallelograms, trapezoids, and circles we've done. What you want to think about these is we took a whole bunch of the shapes we've learned so far and we just stuck them together to make one big shape. So I do have some steps for you to find composite area. The first one is you're going to take that big shape and divide it into individual shapes. Sometimes it will already be divided, other times it will not. Step 2 is to find the area of each individual shape. So you have to find the shape of the small triangle and the half circle or the square. But you need to find them individually first. And number 3, you then need to decide if you have to add or subtract those areas. So if I'm asking you to find a composite figure area, you'll want to add them. But if I'm asking you for like a shaded portion, you may have to add some and subtract some, something of the sort. So I have example 1 here. I'm going to go through all the steps with you so you can see what I mean. So step 1, divide the shape into individual shapes. This is already divided. I do have this triangle and the rectangle. Step 2 is to now find the area of each individual shape. So I'm going to go ahead and label them. I'm going to put triangle. And then my second shape is a rectangle. So I'm going to go ahead and redraw that triangle just so you can see. You don't have to do this, but if this does help you, please do it. I know this middle line is my 6, so my height is my 6 meters. Now I need to know that base. And if you look at the drawing, this is a rectangle, so that means the opposite sides are equal, which means the base of my triangle is 8 meters. Your formula for the triangle is area equals base times height divided by 2. So my base is 8 times my height 6 divided by 2. 8 times 6 gives me 48. I divide that by 2. So I know my area of this triangle is 24 meters squared. I'm going to write it up there just in case you can't see it when I scroll. The second one is the rectangle. So you have the rectangle. I have 10 meters as one side and 8 meters as the other. Remember, your area for a rectangle is just base times height. So my base is 10 times my height, which is 8. So I know the area of my rectangle is 80 meters squared. Example 1 here, I don't have any shaded areas or anything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and add my two areas together. I take 24 plus 80. That gives me 104. So I know the area of example 1 is 104 meters squared. This is a composite figure because it is made up of multiple smaller shapes, polygons. And in order to find the area of the entire shape, we broke it down into the smaller shapes, the triangle and the rectangle, found those areas, and then added them together. Alright, so example 2, your composite figure is already broken into shapes for you, so step 1 is done. Step 2 is to find the area of each individual shape. When I look here, I have a square because all the side lengths are marked as equal, which means this side length of my triangle is 12 meters as well. So when I do that, if you notice, which you should, you'll have a 5, 12, 13 right triangle. So the base of that triangle is 5. So for my triangle, my height, or my area, is base times height divided by 2. My base is 5 times my height, 12, divided by 2. 5 times 12 gives me 60 divided by 2. So I know the area of my triangle is 30. Now my square, remember your area is s squared. I'm going to use that here. My area would equal to 12 squared, which is 144. So I know the area of my square is 144. But remember, you are not done here. You need to find the total area. In order to do that, I take the square, which is 144. I add it to the triangle's area, which is 130. So I know my total area of this composite figure ends up being 174 meters squared. Example 3, we throw in a rectangle and a circle, but it's not a full circle, it's a semicircle or a half circle. So I'm going to go ahead and find the rectangle first. its area is just base times height, which is 6 times 4. So I know the area of my rectangle is 24. Remember, sides that are across from each other on rectangles are equal. I know my diameter of my circle is equal to 4. I need to split that in half to find my circle, so 2. So for my circle, area is pi r squared. So r is 2, 2 squared gives me 4 pi. So the area of the full circle would be 4 pi, but this is a half circle. So for a half circle, you just divide it by 2, and I know that the area of my circle is 2 pi. So this is 2 pi. I take my total area, and I need to find it. So 24, which is the rectangle, plus 2 pi does not simplify, cannot combine them. So we're going to leave it as 24 plus 2 pi meters squared. Example 4 is a little different, and there are multiple ways you can approach example 4. I want you to first think of example 4 as a big rectangle. And if it was a rectangle, the base would be 30, the height would be 15, and in order to find that area, I would take them both and I would multiply them, and that would give me 450. But if you notice, there is a chunk cut out of it. So that means you can go and figure out what the area is by subtracting that chunk. So when I look at this, this would form another rectangle. I have 10 and 8 as my measurements. So the area of this, I'd multiply 10 and 8 together, and that would give me 80. So to find my total area of this shape, I would take 450, and instead of adding 80 to it, I'm going to go ahead and subtract it. So that means my total area here would be 370 meters squared. Now there are multiple ways to approach this, but as long as you get 370, you're doing it the right way. So for example 5, I ask you to find the area of the shaded region. We're going to find the area of the circle, we're going to find the area of the square, and then we're going to subtract the 2 because I only want that shaded region. So circle is pi r squared. I know my r is 4, so 4 squared gives me 16 pi for my area of my circle. Now for my square, you take the base times the height. Since they're both the same, it ends up with 81. I'm going to subtract for my total the square minus the circle, so that ends up with 81 minus 16 pi. Because this isn't similar, we can leave it like that. I'm going to go ahead and plug it into my calculator so we can see what it would look like as a decimal. If you have a calculator that would do that, you can go ahead and do it as well. And you would end up with 30.73 inches squared for just the shaded region. And example 6 is another one of those find the area of the shaded region. My two shapes here are the trapezoid and the rectangle. So for the rectangle, remember you do base times height. Here my base is 16 times 9. So my area ends up being 144. Remember, I just want the shaded region, so I have to find the area of the trapezoid. I take base 1, add it to base 2, and divide it by 2, and then multiply it by the height. So my base 1 is on top. I have 5 plus 11 divided by 2 times my height, which is 4. 5 plus 11 gives me 16, still divided by 2 times 4. And then 16 divided by 2 leaves me with 8 times 4, which gives me 32. Now when I look at this, do I take the trapezoid and am I going to subtract the rectangle from that? Or am I going to subtract the trapezoid from the rectangle? In order to decide, you see what the bigger shape is basically. So to find my total, my bigger shape here is the rectangle, and I'm going to subtract that trapezoid. It's like taking the piece out. So for the rectangle, you found 144 minus 32. And when you do that, you end up with your area being 112 centimeters squared for this shaded region. So there is an assignment with this composite area. It's a Google slide assignment. You can go ahead and work on that. There is no more videos for the week, or there are no more videos for the week, but you do have an exit ticket you need to take. It's a Google Forms. It's like a quiz type deal. You will take the questions or multiple choice. It'll tell you your score afterwards, but remember, you need to upload your work so I can give you credit for that as well. If you have any questions, make sure you send me a text or remind, or ask me a question on Google Classroom.